on the initial screen. So when you share, you know, on the bottom left, you will see share audio. So you need to stop sharing, and then when you click share, go ahead and stop sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And then
when you click share on the bottom of the window that pops up, Jessica, there should be a little button that says share audio.
Share sound. It's actually share
Or
sound.
share sound.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Do you have the share screen window up?
Oh, I see it. Okay, got it. Share sound. Got it. Let's test it. Oh, what's the password? Install this soon, please restart your. Sorry, this password thing came up.
Was that on a Mac?
Yeah. Oops. This isn't even the one I need to share. Okay.
So recently I was leaving my office and heading to the airport.
You hear it?
And so what I did is
Yeah.
I called an Uber. The first thing you do, when you...
Oh, perfect. Okay. Stop share. Yay. Good evening. Let's go ahead and get started, as I want to respect everybody's time. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for spending some of your evening with us. My name is Jessica Bueno. I am Vice President of the Governing Board, and we have invited you to our community outreach sessions to learn and more from you and to build a better relationship with our community. We also wanted to come out and have some engagements sessions with you all to share some of the data that we received in last year, 2022, to help explain why we've selected some of our goals, and also just to share with you a student outcome focused governance framework that the board has adopted. So here is the agenda for this evening. I'm going to introduce you to who the Phoenix Elementary Governing Board is. We're going to go through a quick introduction on what the Student Outcome Focused Governance Framework is. And then we'll go into what our data looks like and share what our draft goals are, along with some of our guardrails for the superintendent and the board. And we'll go through next steps. So if you're participating with us today, please drop your name in the chat, what school your kids attend, maybe your staff. We just want to hear from you all. And also, if you have any questions, please also plug them into the chat. We're going to be mostly discussing what this governance framework looks like. So feel free to unmute yourself when the opportunity comes to ask questions specific to what we're discussing today, but also drop in questions you just may have in general about the school district or your school. So here is who we are. We are 5 members. We are an elected governing board, which means every even election cycle year, you will see this position on your ballot. It's typically a 2 to 3 seat off year. And so you'll see several people, or you might not see somebody at all, just depending on if there is an election or not. We have our meetings on Tuesdays. It's every other Tuesday at 5:15 at our district office that is located on the southeast corner of 7th Street and Palm. You're more than welcome to join us in our meetings, but also most importantly, if you would like to view them, we host them on YouTube. We have a live stream where you can watch us live, or also just go back and see some of our old board meetings. Typically what our responsibility includes is approving budgets for the fiscal year, adoption of curriculum, and establishing and approving policies. I have a short video that will help you understand a little bit more of the responsibilities of a governing board and the responsibilities of our superintendent and administration. But before I get into the video, I just want to give you a little bit more introduction on who we are just as individuals and representatives of our community. So if you see the photo from left to right, first we have Mr. Reginald Carrillo, who is a former educator. Now he works for Microsoft TEALS program, which is a program to help bring STEM programming into high schools. Next to him, we have our president, Ms. Carmen Trujillo, who is a mother and also an alumni of the school district. She resides in the Garfield neighborhood and is serving her first year of her 2nd term. So she's been with us the longest. Next to her in the middle, we have Erica de la Rosa, who is a newly elected governing board member. She is 2 months into the job and is a mom of the district as well. And myself, Jessica Bueno, I am vice president. I am on my 3rd year of serving and my 1st term. I work in nonprofit. I've also had a small business in the district, and I'm just very passionate about serving my community. And next to me, you'll see Dr. Alicia Vink, who is an educator in one of our neighboring school districts and a resident of the Coronado neighborhood. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so that I can play the video. 1 second.
There's lots of focus these days on school boards because of the big decisions they're making during the pandemic. But do you actually know what the role of a school board member is and isn't? How about the role of your superintendent and other district administrators? Here's an easy way to think about it. School board members are elected officials who govern the district. They determine the what. Administrators are hired members of the district staff who manage the day-to-day work of the district. They determine the how. The school board sets the vision and direction for the district and establishes policies and fiscal practices in line with that vision and direction. They co-create the vision and priorities with the district alongside the superintendent. They create policies and make decisions in alignment with the vision and priorities. They establish the goals of the board and hold itself accountable to them. They provide direction for and approves the budget, ensuring the district is a good steward of taxpayer dollars. Recruit, hire, and evaluate the superintendent and treasurer, and they represent, engage, and inform the community regarding policies and decisions of the district. The administration is responsible for allocating resources and managing the day-to-day operations of the district. They co-create the vision and priorities of the district alongside the board. They make operational decisions in alignment with the vision and priorities and implement the board policies. They establish goals for their department or school and is held accountable to them by their managers. They allocate financial and personnel resources in equitable and effective ways. They recruit, hire, and evaluate all staff except the superintendent, treasurer, and in some districts, the internal auditor. And they engage and inform the community. For example, the board decides what their district's attendance policy will be, and the administration determines how to implement that policy by training teachers and staff, who then follow the rules outlined in the policy, and they communicate with families and students when they're absent.
I hope that was a little helpful, that you saw the video that kind of explains what our individual roles and responsibilities are. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Back to sharing more about the board. We wanted to share some of our accomplishments thus far. We were able to hire a new superintendent, Dr. Ibi Davila Hagigat, in 2022. She just started this school year. We were also awarded a award through our contributions to public relations. We were also able to implement a district-wide minimum wage increase, and some of the resolutions we have passed include LGBTQIA protection, meaning that we stand in solidarity with that community and want to offer a safe space for our students, families, and staff. Next, we adopted a firearms storage, which we have encouraged our families to store their firearms safely out of reach of their children, just, as safety precautions to keep them away from getting to our campuses. And last is our aggregate expenditure limit, which is something that has to do with the state legislators, not something that we actually have any authority over, but we sent a letter encouraging our state legislators and senators to override this limit that would not provide us the ability to get some of our funding that has already been allocated to us. So those are just a little things just to share with you as some of our accomplishments. This is mainly for when we're in person, but just today, please understand that we're trying to create a safe space. So we want to take this opportunity to be in community with you all. We do want to be respectful of your time. So we are planning to end the meeting by 6 o'clock. Again, please write down any questions you may have in the chat, and please come off mute if you feel comfortable when the opportunity arises. And if you need any translation services, I will leave these up for just a second to see if you possibly need some help with this. And if you're a Spanish speaker, si habla español, por favor de poner en el chat si necesita ayuda con la presentación. Great. Okay. So the board has adopted a governance framework that we really want to implement in our school district. This is a typically unusual method. It's not something that is required of us, but we've seen, based off of some academic information, papers, and seen other school boards that across the country that have implemented some type of governance model and framework that their districts are successful. So this is why we've adopted this one specifically named the Student Outcome Focused Governance Framework. We're more than happy to also share with you some of the documents that we are studying and receiving, but overall, the framework is just making sure that us as the governing board and the superintendent are in alignment and making sure that our focus is always going to be on what the student outcomes are. So for example, in the little chart, you'll see here's us as the board and the superintendent working collaboratively in the systems and processes, advocacy and engagement to improve our student outcomes. So what that means is that our vision and goals are in alignment, our values are in alignment, and then we're constantly monitoring and being accountable of what the outcomes are. We are also, this is one step of why we're also having these community meetings, because we want to bring this communication and transparency to you as parents or engaged stakeholders to make sure that we are communicating with you all that these are our intentions, these are our goals, and to help keep us accountable on this journey. This is also going to improve our unity and trust, and us all working together to make sure that we are improving this process. Next, I'll go into our data, and I'll pass it over to one of our administrators, Dr. Brant Lloyd, who will go through the data. And this is all just information that have set us up for what our board goals of what we want to adopt. So Mr. Lloyd, I will pass it on to you, and you want to share your screen, right?
Yeah, that'll just be helpful for being able to use my mouse.
Okay.
So let me do that. Share my screen. And go to the presentation. All right. Sorry, I didn't have it on the right slide yet. Can you see the slides now? Awesome. All right. So I'm going to share some data. Again, these are data for the entire district. So it's not just for iAcademy or a single school, but for all students who participate in the state spring assessments that we did in the last few years. This is a requirement of federal and state accountability and written into the legislation. And so these are reported publicly and available publicly if you want to look at any more than just these that we share today. So on this slide, you can see that we have two sets of data. You're looking at the blue, which is our district data, and the yellow, which are the data from the state that we have. And we're going to start looking at data, early literacy data for third grade. And the reason why third grade literacy is important, that's the first year that students take the state test. And we know that early literacy is an important component with predictability for higher graduation rates, better physical and mental health outcomes, and even better career opportunities for students in their future. So this is a critical piece of data and indicator for us to use to try and ensure that our students are on track. And when we say grade 3 ELA pass rate, we're talking about how students are doing with their reading and writing skills that indicate whether or not they really have the skills that they need at the end of third grade as a third grader. So you can see that our district is lagging a little bit behind the state average, both in 2019 and 2022 when we had data to compare with them. In 2021, the state didn't release those data because of a lack of the number of students that year tested. So you can see that we only had a third of students in 2019 who showed that third grade students who showed that they had the reading and writing skills that they needed, and that dropped in 2021 significantly to only 14%. During that year, we were online and very disrupted because of COVID. It was a big transition for many teachers and students and families to move into that online learning environment, especially when third grade, as you know, it's difficult to do a lot of things online digitally. And so there are limitations and challenges definitely with that online environment for our students and across the state. And you can see there was a rebound in 2022, but we still only have a little more than a quarter of our students this last spring who showed that they had those skills that we're trying to get them to have, those academic reading and writing skills. And so it is something that the board and our district is very focused on trying to improve. The next slide is showing third grade again, but now we're looking at math data. So this is the pass rate again, students who are showing that they have the needed math skills for third grade on the state assessment. So we have, you can see again, our district data is blue, the state data is yellow. You can see that we were near 40%, or 2 out of every 5 students who would pass the third grade math assessment. And while the state was at 46%, or almost half. And math, you can see, took an even bigger hit during COVID than ELA, and it hasn't quite rebounded the same way either. So those math skills, we're still trying to work on building some of what was lost with the disruptions that we had during COVID and with the online learning. The next slide that I'm going to show you has to do with our students who need additional support with learning English language, academic English, really. So students who come into our district who need those supports are identified through an assessment called a ZELA. That's the state assessment to measure students' English language proficiency. And they take it each spring as well to see if their English language is improving enough where they no longer need those supports. And our goal is always to get them to a proficient level so that they can do just as well as all of their peers in the classroom. What I'm sharing with you here is just our district data. And this isn't just a grade level. These are all students in grades from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. And what we're sharing are the students who moved up a proficiency level. So the very bottom level, for example, being beginner, we want to move them to the next level, which would be intermediate, and to advanced into a proficient level. Finally, so they no longer need additional supports and services. And so what we're showing are students who moved from beginner to intermediate or intermediate to advanced at least one level over the last few years. So in 2019, you could see at least 40% of our students moved at least one of those levels. And then again, with disruptions, it dropped significantly in 2021 to where only about 1 in 8 students moved a proficiency level, at least one proficiency level. And then in 2022, again, it rebounded some, almost back to a third of the students. And so this is a key area for many of our students who receive these services, because without academic English, it is very difficult to be successful academically. And we want to build those skills in reading, writing, speaking, and listening to ensure that they can be successful in our academic environment. So the next 2 slides I'll share are on 8th grade ELA and math. And the reason why 8th grade is key is because it's the last year in our district before they go to high school, right? And so we want to ensure that our students going to high school have the prerequisite skills and knowledge and abilities to be successful in high school. And it's a key time right before that transition. And so we want to set goals and make sure that we are supporting those students so none of them matriculate without the needed skills and abilities. These data indicate that we only have about a quarter of our students in grade 8 for ELA who have those reading and writing skills that they should have when they move on to 9th grade and go into high school. The state average is significantly better, about 41%, or 2 out of 5 students. In 2021, again with the disruptions, our district average dropped to 20%, or about 1 in 5 students who were able to pass 8th grade ELA, and it rebounded slightly back to 25%, or about a quarter of students, and still quite a ways behind the state average of 40% for 8th grade ELA. And here's the last slide. I'll take a breath so everybody can catch theirs and catch up. I know there's a lot of data. This is the last one, so stick with me. But 8th grade math is another critical area, right? We know that mathematics is important and also a predictor for college and post-secondary success for students who go on to in their academic career after high school. Also helps with increased problem solving, which we all need in our day and age. So our 8th grade math rate, you can see again, was about 25%, or about a quarter of our students, while the state's was at 41%. It was cut in half when we took the state assessment in 2021, and really had and improve. And that's one of the reasons why the board has identified this as an area that we will focus on for our student outcomes. Jessica, do you want me to stop sharing?
You can keep it on.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna pass it right back to you. But yes, thank you, Dr. Lloyd, for walking us through the data. And I'm just going to explain why we chose these important 5 goals based off of the data and what we as a board saw was important to focus on. So number 1, we'll start with early childhood literacy. As Dr. Brandt explained, 3rd grade is when the mandatory state testing occurs, and we thought it was a good baseline to start at. So as we understand, our rate is 28% as of the beginning of next school year, and we plan to increase up to 52% literacy by August of 2025. What you'll notice about our goals is that they're very specific. They're SMART goals, so they're specific, measurable, attainable. I always forget what the R is, but they're also time bound. So that you'll see our goals are SMART goals. Next, we'll move into mathematics. Again, we're at 28%, and we're going to increase by 52% in 4 years. Next, we have our English learners. So we did want to increase from 30% up to 70% by July 2027. And then we go into our middle school years, where the literacy will be from 26% to 49%. Mathematics will be from 15% to 45%.
All right, so I'm going to show what that projection will look like if we achieve those goals over the next 5 years. So this is what it will look like for our grade 3 literacy. So we'd go from 28% of students in 3rd grade with the requisite reading and writing skills to 52%, going about 5% increase each year. And what this means in terms of how we would compare with the state on average only goes up 2 to 3% each year. So the state being this yellow line here, you can see doesn't have as sharp of an upward trajectory, and we would be able to catch them. We're the blue line in 2026 and surpass in 2027 what the state average is. For mathematics, again, we're shooting for about a 5% increase each year for 3rd grade as part of our goal, which would lead us to 52% over half of our students in 2027 who would show proficiency. And similar story, we would catch the state's average in 2026 and surpass it in 2027. For Azella, we don't have a state indicator to compare this to, but just comparing to ourselves, we would go from about a third of students in 2022 who move a proficiency level each year to 70% of our students, or 2/3 who move a proficiency level. And this is a big feat, especially considering that once a student reaches proficiency, they no longer receive those services. So we constantly have new students moving in who we have to build their English language proficiency, which is why this is a good indicator, because instead of setting it based on passing, we're setting it based on trying to help students continue to improve year after year their English language proficiency. And this is for 8th grade literacy. Again, helping our students move about 5% each year additional into the passing category. And if we do that, we would have the same passing rate as the state in 2025 and surpass it in 2026. For math, remember we dropped the most in math, especially in our 8th grade. So we're going to need to move about 7 to 8% each year to get to 45% in 2027. And if we go at that rate, with the state only increasing at 2 to 3%, we would surpass the state in 2025. So those are the projections if we're able to meet our goals for our 3rd grade early literacy in math and our English language student services and 8th grade literacy in math. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Is that okay, Ms. Bueno? And then you can share.
Yes, that works. Thank you. Oops. Sorry. Okay. So now that we've talked about what our district goals are, we also have what is known as guardrails. And this is also what the board has selected to make sure that while our goals are to help our student outcomes, we also need some guardrails that are like other tasks that still need to happen in the district. So number one, we do not want to operate without a reciprocal or effective communication plan between the board, district employees, and community stakeholders. What that means to us is that we want to increase our communication with all stakeholders, families, district employees, and really just tighten up all those efforts. Number two, we don't want to operate without a human organizational customer service plan to foster trust and collaboration. What this means to the board is that for the past couple of years, it's just been very disheartening just to hear from our community and families that they don't feel respected when they're engaging with the district. So the board wanted to ensure that we are being respectful and helpful when issues may occur, or you have questions about how to enroll your child or front office staff, but we just really want to collaborate by fostering this sense of respect and trust in our district. Number three, we will not operate without a system designed to recruit, employ, and retain diverse staff who reflect the community and meet the needs of our urban district students and their learning environments. What this means to us is that HR puts more effort into recruiting and employing staff that looks and reflects our community. If you're not aware, our population right now of our students is 91% students of color, and we want to make sure that all our staff, including teachers, reflects that demographic as well. Number 4, we do not want to operate without a site budget process where resources are allocated equitably. In the past, there hasn't been a transparent process for each school site to have a budget. And we want to stop that because we want to make sure that all schools are operating with the resources that they need in order to be successful. And number 5, we do not want to operate without implementing a community focus plan to mitigate student enrollment barriers. What this means is we just have over the past 10 years seen a natural declinement in enrollment in our school district, whether it be factors that we have no control over, low birth rate, lack of affordable family housing in our district, other instances that are happening that we have no control over. But in order to do more outreach, we wanted to make sure we're meeting our families where they're at. Social media sometimes might not be accessible to all our families, so that means that we need to promote and enroll students and meet them where they're at, whether that be flyers, posting billboards, doing more community-oriented outreach. And that's what the intention behind that guardrail is. I also wanted to share a quick video that will probably better explain what the guardrails really are. And let me share that video to give you kind of a little bit clearer perspective.
So recently I was leaving my office and heading to the airport. And so what I did is I called an Uber. The first thing you do, when you open up the Uber app is, you tell it exactly where you want to go. In this case, I said, I want to go to the airport. And so the Uber arrives and I hop in back. I happen to know that on this particular day, the most obvious path to the airport is blocked by construction. And so I leaned forward to the Uber driver and said, hey, don't take I-35. I happen to know that it's completely blocked off from construction. At that point, I've actually given 2 critical forms of direction of instruction to the Uber driver. I've said, what is the goal? Take me to the airport. But I've also said, what is the guardrail? Don't go along this particular path. Now that I've provided the goal and I've provided the guardrail, all the other operational decisions are made by the Uber driver. If we're going to speed up or slow down, I don't make that call, the driver does. If we're going to turn left or turn right, I don't make that call, the driver does. There's probably 7 other routes that we could take to get to the airport. I don't pick which of those 7 routes we take, the driver does. Inside of a student outcomes focused approach to governing, the board is actively saying, I am more focused on what are the vision and values of the community, the goals and the guardrails. We trust that to our professional educators and the professional staff to figure out. This is a radically different approach to government, but it's one that we believe honors our professionals and really preserves for them the ability to do things that they know make the most sense on behalf of our students.
Yeah, I hope that was a little bit more helpful in understanding what we meant by our guardrails. Oops, here I go again. Sorry. So we reviewed our superintendent guardrails, and now we're going to also share what the board guardrails are. These 5 guardrails include, for us 5 as the board members, not to be appearing that we are directing staff on a day-to-day operations, right? Because we learned that that's the superintendent's job to do. That's not our responsibility or job. That's why we hired a superintendent, because we have faith in her to manage and operate the school district as a whole. Number 2, during our regularly scheduled board meetings, we will not spend less than 50% of our time monitoring the progress of our goals and the superintendent guardrails. Number 3, we won't deviate from the board's operating procedures. Number 4, we will not negate newly elected members from experiencing a quality onboarding process. And number 5, we will focus on inputs and outputs at the expense of student outcomes. So again, this just helps the board stay in their lane and help our colleagues also experience what it means to serve on a governing board. So here's our timeline thus far. So we started this process back in September. As I mentioned, we hired our superintendent in 2022. She started July 1 of 2022. And, the school year starts in August. So she was quick to get a team together and launch the school year successfully. And in turn, we had a retreat in September where us as a board came together and had cabinet, which is the administrators and their superintendent. For 2 days, we met and we discussed what would it look like to adopt such a governance model. So that means that we all read articles and academic papers that supported why this framework is important. And we decided if it's something that we were all committed to and wanting to implement. In November, we did our first self-evaluation. You can go and see that video on YouTube where we grade each other, we'll grade ourselves. It was a 0 because we had to start somewhere, and it was the first time we had done a self-evaluation. So now when we go back to our self-evaluation, I believe in March or April, then we'll actually have the opportunity to grade ourselves based off of our accomplishments. So in December, we reviewed our student data and drafted the potential goals and guardrails that we have presented to you today. And in January, we also worked on those guardrails and goals. And then in February this month, this is us conducting our community meetings to educate our community staff and stakeholders, our intentions behind really working together to govern successfully. Next month, we will adopt our goals and guardrails. We are looking for feedback from our community and families to make sure that we're all on board and supporting one another during this process. And in April is when our board will begin to practice the monitoring process. And I know that was a lot of information, so I'll open up the floor to some questions we may have. But I also just wanted to ask for your support. It could look like watching our board meetings, attending our board meetings. Like I mentioned earlier, you could watch our board meetings live on YouTube. We also host all the meetings there. So if you miss any, they're there for you to play back. If you have the opportunity, please attend a board meeting. Our district office is on the southeast corner of 7th Street and Palm. Our meetings start at 5:15, typically last around 2 hours. We also have in our public meetings, we also have the opportunity for public comments, and you're more than welcome to make any comment you see fit. And we also encourage you to join a parent organization at your school. We know that the more adults that are involved in our schools and school district will only lead to our students being more successful. And we also encourage you to volunteer at your school if you have the opportunity. So thank you so much for your time this evening. I will stop sharing, and I want to just ask if anybody has any questions that they would feel comfortable coming off mute and asking, or if you just want to put your question in the chat. I see we have 2 participants, so if you feel comfortable engaging, I also have some raffle prizes that I would like to give to you. So if you don't mind messaging me your contact information so that I can make sure you get those gift cards. We just wanted to honor and respect your time with us today.
And Jessica, do you know, do we have the link to the feedback form
Yes,
that we can put in the chat maybe?
there we go.
Perfect.
Yes, and if you could please take this quick survey, we just want to receive some feedback and input about what do you think about our goals? What do you think about the guardrails for the board and the superintendent? And then just an open feedback concerns section that you can feel free to.
And actually, if you can click on the second link, the first one is to the like edit the form.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Thank
The
you.
second one allows them to fill it out.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Give you a couple minutes. We really appreciate you joining us today. Yes, good question. Good question. So we have one question. What is the YouTube to watch the meetings? I typically just go to YouTube and type in Phoenix Elementary School District and it pops right up, but I believe if someone can help me get that link in there, thank you. And then the other question is, what are some ways the district will be focusing on the mental well-being of our students? That's a great question. We have a whole social work department. I don't know if Dr. Lloyd, if you can answer this question.
I don't know if I would do it justice. You know, I think we can take that to our coordinator of social work, Dawn Baumgartner, and she would be able to share lots of ways. But yeah, we have social workers at each one of the schools, full-time social workers that are able to provide services for mental and emotional well-being of students. And there's many layers to that as well. So I don't know if I would do a good job answering justly. But we can definitely get an answer, a good answer to that.
So please drop your email so that way we can make sure to answer your question.
And the link that I just put in the chat, that's our district YouTube channel. So it has recordings from our previous board meetings. And when we have a board meeting, it'll have a live video link there on that channel.
Perfect. Got your email. Thank you. And Miss Diana, if you wouldn't mind also sharing your email so that I can touch base with you about your gift card. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, we do partner with Valle del Sol to be able to provide some of the well-being, mental health well-being services to students and families. Perfect. Got your email, Miss Diana. If we have no further questions, we can call it a night. Let me drop my email so that way you can contact me as well. Copy these. All right, hearing no more questions, we will see you next time. So thank you all for your time, and we really hope that this is the first of many community engagements, and we appreciate your trust in us in educating and supporting your children. Bye.